Most investors will get completely annihilated in this crypto market. If you watch my videos, you know I usually talk about coins, particular coins to invest in, or tools or tutorials on how to use something. Today, completely different. I want you to take a step back because I hear a lot of people think that this crypto market is like nothing that's ever existed before, and they give all the reasons why. Wrong. This exact thing has played out before. I'm going to show you exactly what happened because I lived through it. I'm going to explain it. I'm going to show you the parallels. And then I'm going to show you what you can potentially do to avoid it, at least what I'm going to do. Let me say, I'm a big dumb animal. I'm Brian. That's my disclaimer. Informational purposes only. Don't do what I do. I have a school community where I teach all sorts of things and discussions on crypto and whatnot. Links below. And in particular is a link to 2 free courses if you're interested to see how I teach, if you will, because I enjoy doing this. Now, I don't have many viewers, but for those of you that do view, I wish you all the best. And I realized something, and that is that I talk about many different types of crypto in different categories and then different sizes, meaning high market cap, medium market cap, small market cap. But I want you to understand my theory on these things. And I'm going to lay out my thesis and show you why. The thesis is that I believe in this particular crypto market, everyone talks about the 4-year cycle and Bitcoin halving and all of that. However, I believe we're going to have a tsunami of investment like we've never seen before. And then I believe we're going to have an incredible crash. And that means that most investors will not make it out of here, out of this market, if you will, with a profit, or they may have to hold for a very long time. But it looks as if many of these could essentially go to zero. Now, let me explain something. This is the thesis, if you will, on why I believe we're just going to have an unbelievable amount of investment in this market, whether this year or next year, is just going to rocket and then crash. Here's the parallel. As you can see, I'm much older. I grew up with computers, programming, wrote software, actually sold technical analysis software like you see on TradingView. Before there was even a web browser and an internet, sold it on bulletin boards. So I've got a little bit of a technical background. I started a company, raised money for it, went through the dot-com bubble. Now, if you don't know, back in the 90s, before 2000, that's when everything started to happen. You've got dial-up. Eventually, end of the 90s, early 2000s, we moved to broadband. What does dial-up mean? That means that you had to disconnect your phone and hook it to your computer so no one can make a phone call for you to dial in to either a bulletin board system or eventually through a service to get you online. Then, in the mid to late 90s, because of the internet, which was brand new, and a browser was brand new, being able to visually see things. So as you can imagine, the majority of people in the world had no idea what this was and thought it was just a fluke. As you all know, not a fluke. Looking back, companies started to raise money in the late 90s like mine did. And many of them grew and raised money, innovating, creating things, hoping in some cases to make revenue. Some were making revenue, some weren't, most weren't. But let's just say thousands or tens of thousands of companies grew and started to take advantage of this new technology, the internet. Now, look at this chart of the NASDAQ. It was around 1,000 in the mid-90s. It's at 20,000 right now. It was around 1,000. During the time of this boom, the dot-com boom, they say, it got up to about 5,000. That's equivalent of today going from 20,000 NASDAQ to 100,000. That is unbelievable because everyone was jumping on board. Now, most of those people had no idea what they were investing in. They just wanted to get in. See the parallels? A lot of people now investing in crypto kind of understand what's going on, but there's going to be a wave of people, the majority, that have no idea and they're just going to buy in. Went from 1,000 to 5,000. Then we had the crash and that went back down to 1,000. It's as if NASDAQ today went from 20,000 to 100,000 and crashed back down. What was The outcome of that is most of those .com companies went to zero. Now, I almost had an acquisition. I was about to be purchased by a public company, and then the market crashed, and I was done. I had a company that was actually making money. So as you can imagine, this happens, and this is sort of an innovative cycle. Money investment comes in, everyone starts at the starting line and starts running. Then we've got a crash because there's just too much money. There's too many companies that can't possibly all survive. And then boom, majority, 90% of them are gone, but there are still some that survive. You might have heard of Amazon and eBay, but there are many others that didn't survive. Most didn't survive. They can't possibly survive. You can't have that many competitors in a space. Name the number one eBay competitor. It's right there next to them in terms of sales. You can't. So now we've set the stage. Take a look at the crypto market. Now this was the NASDAQ, goes way back, and I was doing it on a monthly. This is the total crypto market on a monthly as well. Back here, 2017, you can see before that, very small, 25 billion or so, had a run up, had another run up, has another run up. Now let's talk about the differences between this last time it ran up and now when I believe it's just starting to move. In the past, it was not all over TV. You can turn on anything like these financial channels, which let's just say maybe older people like myself or others may watch, maybe younger people don't watch. They show tickers and that sort of thing, but it's only been in the last couple of years when they've been showing things like Bitcoin and Ethereum and actually having discussions about crypto now on a regular basis when they never did before. That's a big deal. That's exposure to the masses. Also, there weren't any ETFs last time. They didn't have Bitcoin spot ETFs, didn't have Ethereum ETFs. And so older generation like my parents in their mid to late 80s, well, they own Bitcoin and Ethereum now through ETFs. That didn't happen last time. They had no idea what it was before. Not a clue. Then let's talk about companies, states, countries buying things like Bitcoin and getting involved in crypto and wanting to have now laws and regulations so that they can help bring some stability to the markets and create cities that are crypto friendly and that sort of thing. They see the writing on the wall. That's a huge deal as well. The masses also see it much easier now to get an app on the phone. That's why a lot of people say when the market starts to move, watch and see when the Coinbase app becomes number one on the App Store, meaning a lot of people are downloading it. Simple to get money from the bank in when that didn't used to be the case, and easy to purchase with a simple user interface. Look at these three. I'm just going to show you one video, but the first one here is Raoul Pal. How you probably, hope I pronounce his name right. I believe he was the creator of the Banana Zone, and he shows it here in this image of a video where he discussed how things go into cycles based on money, M2, liquidity, that sort of thing. And then also you've got Michael Saylor, who believes that Bitcoin's going to 10 million. People will say that's crazy. But then again, there was a time, believe it or not, when people said no one is going to spend $1 online. They're just going to steal your credit card info. No one's ever going to buy anything online. Believe you me, as I was someone who had a .com company, there were a lot of people that just said, I was crazy, and this isn't going to happen, and so is everyone else who thinks people are ever going to buy anything online. Well, we know how that ended up. So in my mind, even though my little tiny lizard brain has a difficulty comprehending 100,000 Bitcoin to a 10 million Bitcoin, well, it's entirely possible. And then this last one, listen to this individual who I believe she's the president of UBS, huge bank, and they have a lot of clients. Listen to what she has to say.
Not just private market, and also hedge fund, commodity, and crypto. Interestingly, recently when I talked to some of the traditional family offices, they were telling me they are now looking at allocation of 5% in crypto. That's the reason why even traditional banks like us, I have to make sure we get our platform ready to take on this opportunity.
Okay, so what was interesting about that video is she's basically saying, and she looks kind of shocked, she calls them family offices, but really high net worth individuals. Banks have different services that they provide to them as opposed to just a person who's putting money in the bank. And she's saying that they are looking at allocating 5% to crypto. And you're probably thinking 5% is nothing. No. It's a lot, because it was only a couple years ago when every financial advisor in the world, or most of them, would say, don't you dare buy any crypto. Don't put any of your portfolio in crypto. You're going to lose all your money. Financial advisors that help you with your planning for retirement and that sort of thing, they say, here are your assets. How are we going to divvy this up? How are we going to diversify? Nothing is going into this slice of crypto. And then it was, well, maybe 1%. Those were the outliers. Now she's saying these huge wealthy families are saying to themselves, 5% into crypto, which is a significant amount. That, as you can see the look on her face, she's realizing she's losing business. That is going out of her realm. It's going into something that she is not able to generate income and revenue off of. That's why she said, we need to quickly get into this space because it's going to grow. So they believe it's going to grow. And now they're allocating these high net worth individuals. So you can see the writing on the wall. And I've heard of estimates of people saying things like, well, it's 3 trillion now. It could get to 100 trillion. You might say that's crazy, but don't you think when the NASDAQ was at 1,000, everyone said it was crazy that it would go to 5,000? Do you not think that when it was at 1,000 here, that everyone thought it was crazy that it would get to 20,000? That's a 20x over a period of 20 years. Do you think that crypto could go from 3 to 100 in 10 or 20 years? I believe it can. Now that I've discussed the similarities between the dot-com bubble, let's talk about more similarities. And then I'm going to show you or tell you what I'm going to do. CoinMarketCap, go into any category. Let's go into RWA. We go into RWA and we scroll down. Look how many there are. This is 100 in this category. Some may or may not be there, and then there's another page. I think maybe there's 150. Do we really believe that 150 crypto companies focused solely on RWA are all going to survive? I don't. So I've got a portfolio of about 60. And I think we're going to have this euphoria of investment. And all the market, every crypto is going to go up. But I don't believe they're all going to survive. It's sort of like, I used to love to run track. I was a sprinter. And you would go to like a state event if you made it to states. And people would come around. And let's say that there's 80 or 100 sprinters. They're all excited and they all made it to states. Just like all of these cryptos are going to go up. Well, guess what? Only one of them is going to win. And there will be a first, second, and third. But even second and third aren't considered anywhere near as great as number one. The majority of them, the other 97 runners, go home. They lost. They were super excited when they got there. And then they went to zero. They lost. In the crypto space, just like in the dot-com area, you can't possibly have 150 just doing extremely well in RWA. Odds are only a couple are going to survive if we indeed have a tsunami of investment and a large crash. So I look at my portfolio and I say to myself, well, now I've got a problem. I believe that the market will crash. But I also believe it's going to go from 3 trillion to 100 trillion. So how do I reconcile those two things? Here's how. When you see me talk about small cryptos in the RW space or anything else, know this. I am 100% going to sell out of them. I am not holding them for the long term. I expect them to die. I do expect them to do well in the market, and at some point I'm getting out. But there will be a handful of my 60, one or two maybe, in the major categories. For example, a great example is Ondo. Ondo just did yet another deal where they're working with, was it Blackstone or, and Chainlink, and they're accelerating RWA in a way that some others aren't and never will. And they're going to be gone. So if my 60 crypto, might I hold on to 10 of them? 5 of them? Am I going to hold on to all of it? Well, if it rockets up, I might not hold on to all of it. Maybe I get rid of it all, but I buy back in. The point is this. If I do believe we could potentially go to 100 trillion, Yeah, I might want to continue to hold some, or maybe just a portion of them. But I do believe, look at the last market crash. And of course, it doesn't mean that's what the future holds. But if you look at similar cycles of businesses, technology, and innovation, this mimics the dot-com era where everyone goes in. Was there 10,000 crypto coins, 20,000 crypto coins, 30,000? Are they all going to continue to have value? Maybe a little value, but for the most part, they're just going to get wiped out. So this is why I say this is probably the most important video I've made, because I want you to understand, if you follow my videos, that even though I'm investing in a lot of things, I will not be holding the majority of them very long. And you need to look at yours and decide what you think the future holds, and be very careful, because if we do have a euphoria of investment, typically, like everything in life, everything goes one direction, it goes too far, and then it corrects. Thanks for watching. Hope this was helpful. Have a great day. And I hope everyone watching will get out of the market in time to make a nice profit and create generational wealth for you and your family. Have a great day.